Well, here we are again. It's Friday, August 23rd, 2024, and this is the weekly auction video. We take a look and talk about what's been going on in the Chinese art and Japanese art market and the Asian art market in general over the last week. What sold, things that have happened. There's some real interesting stuff coming up, so stick around. There's a Christie sale just got posted for the part of the Asia Week thing, and there is a collection coming up on eBay that a lot of you are going to be interested in. As you know, it's been pretty quiet on the internet for the last couple of months. We talked about it quite a bit because it happens every year, and it's starting to pick up again. And this week on the newsletter page on Bitamount, you're going to find a lot of material if you click the button and go over and take a look here for the newsletter. And one of the things I wanted to talk about was that there's a collection, if you like Chinese jades, there's a very good collection of Chinese jades that came up. I know the fellow that has them. It's Chamberlain Antiques up in New Hampshire. I don't know where he got it, but it was a collection built in the 1950s. And there's some very nice looking pieces in there. And we're going to go through some of them to give you some idea what they are. So stick around until the end because we're going to talk about it. It's quite a good looking sale. And to those of you that use, just a reminder on the Patreon side that have subscribed, because many of you have, there is a video we did this week on, it was sort of an interesting video about yuan porcelain and what they didn't know about it going back 100 years ago. And it's a pretty amazing thing when you think about it, knowing what we know today, and then you look back at what they thought at the time. And it was sort of a fun video that we threw in. And of course, we added the, if you didn't see it yet, the part 4 on Ming porcelains, the foot rims and how to date them, how to realistically, what your expectation should be if you plan on buying market period Ming wares. And it came out quite well, I think, and of course the Weekly Gazette and all that stuff. So if you haven't checked it yet this week and you're a subscriber, go over and do it. We're going to be starting to add separate sort of interesting little snippet videos and things increasingly because a lot of you like them. A lot of you that use it, I think most of you are pretty serious collectors, and you like to hear stories. So we're going to be doing more and more of those about antiques in general and other things. So do check that out. Now, let's see here. We're going to start over in here. Some of you may remember a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned that out of the blue, the forgers in China are starting to make reproductions of export wares, of expensive export wares, armorial pieces in particular, and these sort of very recognizable patterned porcelains that were made in the 1870s and 1880s and 1770s rather, in 1780s in China for the export market. And this bowl came up on a search we ran a few weeks ago. It was a sale that took place just a couple days ago, August 18th, between the last video and this one. This is the bowl. This is a reproduction. It's a copy. And it's rather well done in many ways, but it's got some issues where the faces are drawn, the colors in some areas aren't right, the outlining here, the gilding here looks more like brown paint. It's a little irregular and so forth. There are some problems with it. It doesn't have the finesse of the originals, but it had enough finesse here to trap a few buyers. And somebody paid $2,600 for this. Now, the seller, to their credit, they didn't claim that it was an antique, really. They just said it was an important Chinese export rose mandarin punch bowl and stand, which leads you to think it's probably an 18th century one because a contemporary one is not important, and so forth. But this one sold for $2,600 for an 11-inch bowl, which would be a high price even for an original. But they managed to do it. And then there was this bowl, also in the same sale, and this was a rose medallion punch bowl, and it was, but not a big one. And it's also a copy. It was, it was pretty good size, 16 inches. This sold for $400, and this is a very blatant copy. But one of the things I noticed on this is historically, when they've made copies of rose mandarin and rose medallion pieces, they often left gilding and highlights out of the hair of the figures. Well, they're starting to put them in. So it's going to make it even more difficult for some to recognize the copies when they come across them. One of the ways you can do it, though, is by looking at other elements and aspects that you don't typically see. And one of them is the way this Greek key border is added around the outside of it. It's very sloppily done. Having said that, I suspect they'll work on that. But there's some floral patterns, like these flowers here, they're not drawn properly. There's a lot wrong with it, but there isn't enough wrong with it to scare people off from spending some money on it. And they did. Somebody spent $400 plus premium. It was estimated at $300 to $400. It is not antique. This was a misstatement on their part. It was clearly not an antique. This bowl is probably less than 10 years old. So, or it's probably less than a couple years old, because we haven't seen many of these turn up. Any of these, we haven't seen any turn up like this. But we've seen quite a few export pieces that have been reproduced. And so forth. So you'd be really careful out there now, even with these. All right, now some results. You may recall that I've gone on a bit about these paintings because I just like them so much. I just thought these were great China trade paintings from the probably early 19th century, beautifully done. Some people say this style of art was done around the 1820s to 1840s. Other experts, they say, well, it was done around 1800 to 1810. I think it's sort of splitting hairs, really. But these were wonderful. They were big paintings, and they did pretty well in the end. This was at Amaro auctions, the same people that sold the Punch Bowl. These brought $1,300 plus the premium, so it ended up around $1,800 for the pair of paintings. But these were excellent. These were quite excellent paintings, and I hope one of you bought them. If one of you bought them, put a comment down below. All right, and then over here, I mentioned this photograph a couple of weeks ago because I love Chinese photography, old Chinese photography that was done, 40, 50 years ago. And this was done by a Hong Kong photographer. It was estimated at $500 to $700, and somebody picked it up for $400. I think that was a very reasonable buy. This was a wonderful photograph. It was signed by the artist. It's on a mat. But it was done like an old, like an ink painting with the mountains fading into the mist in the background. But this was a photograph that actually captured that sort of a scene unbelievably well. I think this was a great buy. I think somebody got a wonderful buy out of that. And then this was sort of a shocker. A few weeks ago, and I saw these two horse planters. I absolutely loved them. I thought they were great. They were wonderfully decorated and very, very unusual. They were 19th century. They weren't 18th century, as the ad said. I assumed everybody would know that. But in the end, they met the reserve. They met the reserve. When you throw in the buyer's premium, they met the estimate rather. They sold for $9,000 plus the premium. And these weren't very big. They were 9 by 6 by 8 inches, so they weren't terribly large. But they were extremely interesting and extremely beautiful. And they ended up bringing it ends up at around $12,000 all in, including the premium, which was 26%. And this was at Merrill's up in Williston, Vermont. They get good stuff. They get good estates. And there's another good estate sale coming up that I'm going to talk about as we go through these. So that's also coming up in New Hampshire. All right, and then over here to this is the sale. Here it is. William Smith Auctions up in, let's see, I want to get the right town here. Hold on a second. I should know it off the top of my head, but I don't. Plainfield, New Hampshire. This is a sale that's coming up in a few weeks. I think in 12 days, on the 11 days and 22 hours coming up. There's some awfully nice pieces in here of Chinese things, some good Chinese bits, as they say. One of them is this. There's a group of tobacco boxes done in boxwood. And this is a boxwood tobacco box. It's very nicely done, well carved. There's 3 of them in the sale, as I recall, 3 early boxwood things. And keep in mind that boxwood was imported to China. It wasn't something that grew there. It was considered to be a real luxury wood, and it was brought in by merchant ships going to China, and they would sell the Chinese boxwood in most cases, and they would carve them. And this was a beautifully done box. There are 3 of them in here. They're all well done. This is just one of them. The estimate is very, very modest, $400 to $600, the $200 starting price. It's an unusual China trade item. These are very interesting. They do not turn up all that often, and I'm assuming it came out of a New Hampshire estate. This is Smith gets some very, very good estates. let's see, he's got 5,800 followers on here. This right now has 10 bidders watching, and so it hasn't built up yet, but the sale is not until September 4th. They also have this, if you're a rug guy, this is a Selwan Kazakh carpet. It's a very nice one. It was made around 1900, they think. I think it might have been made a little before that. This looks more like an 1880s rug to me, but it's beautifully done. Beautiful pattern, very, very striking. It has a very reasonable estimate, $1,000 to $1,500. I suspect it'll bring more than that, but you never know. It measures 5 by 7 feet. If you're looking for a very colorful and beautiful carpet to put in your house somewhere, this is it. This is a nice looking rug, and the pile is low, but it's even, and it looks to be in pretty good shape overall. I don't see any damage to it. And then also in the sale is this, one of these fantastic tortoiseshell carved snuff boxes from the late 18th, early 19th century. This is a very nice one. It's got the typical separations and so forth, but it's meticulously carved. It's beautifully carved. And this is the kind of estate thing that you do find around New England, old Chinese carvings and so forth. It measures 3 3/4 inches in diameter and is estimated at $500 to $800. I think it'll probably go through that. In the past, we've seen these boxes sell for anywhere from $1,000, $1,100, all the way up to around $2,200, $2,400. I think they're fantastic. Love them. And if you like gold carvings, check it out. But they also have things like this. I'm just throwing this in to give you an idea of flavor of the auction. This very nice English Georgian mahogany bookcase, 18th century, wonderfully done. And if you buy it, you can put a nice little Chinese statue or a Buddha up here on the plinth. But it's a very, very nice looking bookcase cabinet. And the prices for these things today, I'm going to point this out because the estimate is only $800 to $1,200, which is probably about right. $400 starting price. This is all handmade. This is beautifully, beautifully done. It's got a couple of old repairs to it, which is, you have to expect those. But it's got a great surface. It's got a great patina that you don't get out of contemporary furniture. It's got a grain. It's made from older woods, which have better graining in them. And if you went to a really good furniture store, or you went to a cabinet maker to have him make you one of these things, a custom cabinet maker, he'd probably charge you $6,000 or $7,000 minimum for it, maybe $8,000 to build one of these things. And here's a nice antique one ready to go. So if you're in the area, get yourself a nice bookcase. And then popping along over to this is coming up also at William Smith's in the Japanese sale. There's some Japanese things on the sale. One of them is this. It's a very unusual Japanese amari, probably, they're saying 17th century. I think it's probably 18th century. It doesn't really matter, with these centaurs on them. And I don't ever remember seeing a centaur on Japanese amari before, but here they are. This is a really, really rare plate, I think, from a pattern standpoint. And it looks to be in very, very good condition. The decoration is excellent on it, as you can see. I don't see anything wrong with it. The underglaze blue looks good. The gilding looks good. But I'm pretty certain this is an 18th century plate. There's the back of it. Nicely done, very typical of the period. It almost looks like the back of a Kangi amari dish, the way they were done, because they were sort of done around the same time, the early 18th century. This is a very interesting dish, and if you want something rare and you collect Japanese stuff, you want to laser in on this. As you can see, it's already up to $1,100 with 2 bids on it. It's going to bring good money. It's going to bring good money because people are going to recognize it as a very, very rare example. It measures 10 1/4 inches in diameter. And there's also a very unusual barber bowl in this sale from Japan as well. So if you're a Japanese collector, check out this sale. It's the William Smith sale. It's on the Global and Patreon pages for live auctioneers right now. We added them all yesterday, so do check that out. Another thing for the Japanese collector, Northgate Gallery, coming up on September 7th is this very unusual, lovely big pair of Kutani vases. These are 20 inches in height. Very, very exaggerated necks on them, very meticulously done, made during the Meiji period. They are a mirror pair, which is very, very nice, and they look to be in excellent shape. You want to check it for a condition report, make sure there's no damage, but overall they look great, and they still have their original lids. With a seated figure on it, and that's very, very unusual. Usually these little lids are long gone. And there's lots of pictures here. Here are the covers, and they look to be in good shape. I don't see anything wrong with them. The decoration is like all good kutani is very meticulously done. So do check those out. The estimate is very modest, $600 to $800 for the pair, with a $100 starting price. You want to definitely investigate those if you buy kutani. And also coming up at Andrew Jones sale are these. Now they didn't date these, and I had 6 auction inquiries through the assistant program off of Bidamount the last week or so for these vases, for these jars. So I'm going to talk about them. If I'd only had one, I probably wouldn't, because the person that saw them would be offended if I started talking about them. But if it was just one person, but I've had a bunch of people see them, and I checked it. It has 85 watchers on this lot already, and the sale isn't for another 4 days, and I think it'll probably have 90 or 95 watchers by the time the sale happens, which means there's probably about as many people looking on Invaluable, and because Invaluable and live auction is more or less the same posters. It's going to do these are going to be very well. These are 23 inches tall, and they certainly appear to be Kangi to me, big Kangi jars. And why they didn't date them, I don't know. The lid on this one, obviously, it's yellowed. It's been repaired, but they're just the finial. The rest of them the rest of the jars look very good. Get a condition report, just in case, because I have no idea why they gave these such a low estimate. It doesn't make any sense to me at all. And this auction house knows a bit about Chinese ceramics. But it's kind of early, or 1700, 1720 Kangi work. These flat unglazed bottoms, they often did on the bigger pieces. And you have this nice smooth edge from resting on surfaces. These are good looking jars, and they're big, 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 23 inches in height. You don't see those very often. And then hopping along over to this in the same sale, there's this very nice large pair, 26-inch tall pair of Japanese amari jars. These are very nice with the geishas on them. I don't see anything wrong with these at all. Maybe has the finial been repaired? I can't tell. Sort of an odd color. That's why I'm asking. But the jars overall look good. There's no damage to them. That's not a crack. If somebody's looking at that's underglazed blue decoration, if it looked like a crack to you. No, that's the finial. It's a gilded finial. That's sort of unusual. And they're big. And there's a picture of the bottom of them. 18th century jars, estimated at just $300 to $500 for these. They're 26 inches tall. If they should bring $1,200 to $1,800, but right now they're only estimated at $300 to $500. It's got 31 bidders already on that. So it's a pretty good looking auction here coming up at Andrew Jones. This is in Los Angeles. Many of you know him. Or bought from him. He does pretty good sales. He gets into decent estates. But do check these out if you're a Kangi buyer. They're very, very nice. All right, and then hopping along over to here, this is the Christie's Important Chinese Works of Art sale. And they've got some nice lots in here. And this sale is going to be interesting for all. It should be interesting for all of you, because it's going to be sort of a litmus test of the market, given all the turmoil in the world and all the craziness in the elections and the war in Ukraine and the war in Israel and inflation and the border and all the nonsense that we're dealing with every day that doesn't need to be happening. All of this affects economies, and it'll be very interesting to see how some of these pieces do, because there's a number of lots in here that are pretty pricey. They're pretty pricey, and some of the estimates are pretty strong. So we're going to see what happens in the next couple of weeks. We'll find out. A number of things in the sale. Some of them will look familiar to you. This is not the same vase, but this is a vase you may remember a few weeks ago. We had a vase that virtually identical to this in size and in decoration was sold on Live Auctioneers. I can't remember who the seller was, and it did very well. It ended up bringing several $1,000s. Here's another one coming up at Christie's. It's identical, 19th century, 25 inches in height with iron red decoration and gilding, and it's a rouleau vase, and it's estimated at $4,000 to $6,000, and that's a pretty aggressive estimate So we're going to see if it can get there. This is the big thing: or is it going to go below the estimate? Or we want to see what's happening. And then there are things like this massive Kangi charger. It's 20 inches in diameter. You don't see many 20-inch in diameter Kangi dishes, and it's borderless. It has no border. It's decorated. It's right up to the rim, the same way that the Japanese would do a Rita-ware sometimes during the Meiji period. It has no border pattern. It's just treated like a big canvas of a street scene with people on balconies and so forth. The colors are pretty strong on it. The green is particularly strong. Nice overglazed blue decoration, and we'll see how that does. It's got a big estimate, $20,000 to $30,000. It's nicely painted. It's not extraordinarily painted. What's extraordinary about it is the size, and it is not mark and period. It just has this on the back, and there's no rim decoration on the back. So we'll see how it does. It'll be interesting to see if this gets to $20,000, even though it's a big one. It's unusually big. It'll be interesting to see if it gets there based on what's happening in the economy. And then there's this, and some of you may recognize this plate. This plate was in a Sotheby's sale just about 6 years ago in New York. In the intervention, what was it called? The Intervention of Imperial Taste, Sotheby's. March 15th, 2017, it was lot number 6, and for some reason, it's back up for sale again. I don't know whether it was maybe the person that bought it passed away, or financial reasons, or it was owned by a dealer. You don't know. You don't know who had it. It's always a little bit eyebrow raising when something returns to the market after such a short period of time. There's the rain mark on the bottom of it, right over there. It's a, let's see here, there it is, there's a good picture. It says Juan D mark on there. So it's a mark and period plate with the blue background reversed out against, or blue underglazed blue reversed out against the white ground. So they drew the flowers by painting in the blue and leaving the area white. It's an interesting technique that was started during the Ming Dynasty, during the Yongle period. And here's another one. And I'll show you the one that sold. There it is. If you're wondering what it brought last time, it sold for $2.172 million, including premium. This is the same plate. This is the plate that sold at Sotheby's. This is the Sotheby's listing. It came from a private French collection, and here it is again. And they've got the same provenance. They've got all the information there. It's just fine. And this time it's estimated at $1 to $1.5 million. It was also estimated at $1 to $1.5 million in 2017. So they're going with the same estimate. And if it sells for less than, if it sells for minus commission under that 2.172, the poor owner is going to lose money on this deal. We'll see if they get there. And what's interesting, though, is they have a very good photograph of the back of this plate. This is something you want to take a look at. If you want to know what the back of one of these should look like, this is it. This is it. It does have the reddish area to it, but it's also got a lot of dirt and grime, and the foot rim looks absolutely fine. Something worth studying, because you're not going to run into these in the market out there. If you come across one of these anywhere but at one of the big auction houses, it's invariably going to be a fake, but it's fun. They're fun to look at and understand. And then there's this. This is spectacular. This is a robin's egg who-formed vase measuring 12 inches tall. And I've always loved these. I had one of these years ago that I bought from a little antique shop in Essex, Mass, across the street from my own shop. And there was a group shop, and they had people would come in and bring things in. And there was a lady in there that was getting stuff out of a house somewhere on the North Shore. I never figured out where. And she was bringing in these unbelievable pieces of Chinese porcelain and Chinese sculpture. And every week when I'd see her coming in to refill her case, I'd follow her. Go in behind her and buy it. And she had one of these in there one day. It wasn't quite as big as this one. It was a little smaller. This one is 12 inches tall. But I bought it from her, and I didn't pay $30,000 to $50,000 for it. I forget what she was asking. I think it was under $500 for it. But here it is. Here's one with a $30,000 to $50,000 estimate. Here's the bottom of it. I believe this came from Marchant's original. Yeah, Marchant sold this at some point in its lifetime. Here it is. It's got a very, very nice white foot. And the robin's egg glaze on this is exceptional. The speckles are just absolutely beautiful. This is a beautiful piece of porcelain, and it's wonderfully potted. I like the handles, and we'll see. It has a very good chance of getting to that price because it's large for one of these. You'll see these around. Sometimes you'll see them around. The most common sizes, they're under 5 inches in height. They tend to be, a lot of them are very small. But they did, I think the one we had was about 9 inches tall. And this is even a bigger one. This is a better one than we had. All right, and then over to this very unusual outside decorated peach plate, Kangi period, Marken period. There's the back of it. Oh, this was also from Marchant. What do you know? Nicely done, beautiful foot rim on it. And you don't see a lot of Kangi Daosai wares. So it was probably done sort of late in the period. But Kangi, obviously, but Daosai enameled Kangi porcelains are rare birds, and it's estimated at 30 to 50,000 for that reason. And was this? Oh no, this was from Jade Galleries, not Marchant's. Jade Gallery. They're kissing cousins over in America. They're not really cousins, but they both operate in the same sphere. And this is a very, very lovely dish. We'll see if it gets there. It's estimated at 30 to 50, but it's a very rare thing. And then this is a heck of a big bowl. This is a Qianlong period blue and white bowl, and it came from a collector that I actually knew, Gordon Merrill. He lived in Manchester, Massachusetts, and he was over in England in the 50s to 60s, and he befriended some people at the David Foundation, and ended up buying, some of you may remember, a few back in 2000 and when was this? 2003. Doyle's had an auction with some amazingly rare early Ming pieces that brought a fortune, and they were handled through Doyle's by one of the great experts in Chinese art. His name was Martin Lorber. Martin Lorber had worked at the David Foundation as a researcher and so forth. He was a real scholar. He was I got to know him a little bit. We sold something with him at Doyle's, and he befriended Mr. Gordon while he was in England, and he guided him on his journey into collecting Chinese porcelain. He was his advisor. And when these pieces were in sort of his summer house in New Hampshire, in Manchester, Massachusetts, you could drive by the house and you could look in the window and see these through the bay window in a case it was either his dining room or the edge of his living room. I'm not sure which room it was, but we had gotten to meet this guy back in the 80s, in the late 80s, and he had some amazing things. And he bought this bowl as well. He had a very good eye. He had an impeccable eye. And he sold the pieces at Doyle's because that's where Martin Lorber was working with Mrs. Doyle at the time. After Bill Doyle died, he wanted to go in and he was helping her out because he was that kind of a guy. And in Mr. Morrell's will, he said, when I go, I want Martin Lorber to handle the sale of my things. And he was at Doyle's at the time, and that's where it went. Previously, he had actually worked at Sotheby's. But at any rate, it's an interesting saga and part of the history of the piece at this point, and to me anyway. And this sold also at Doyle's about 20 years ago. It's estimated at $20,000 to $30,000. It's 15 inches in diameter, and it's one of the nicest underglazed blue landscape bowls I've ever seen. This is a beautifully done bowl. Absolutely beautifully done. It's not a market period thing. And then it's got these great fish on the interior. And if you pull it in, it has very little wear to the interior. It appears to be in excellent condition. And that often isn't the case with these blue and white center punch bowls. People would put things in them, a lot of abrasion to the bottom. And this one, you can see here, the underglazed blue is all very crisp and clear the way it was originally. And the interior with the koi fish is very unusual and very interesting. I think this is a very nice bowl, $20,000 to $30,000. And then on to the jades in the sale. There's quite a bit of jade in the sale. This was my favorite. It's a fairly small one. It's only about 4 3/4 inches in height, but it's wonderfully decorated, wonderfully carved. And if you pull it in, you can see the fine details in the carving. Down here, you see these pleats in the robe going up, holding a flute. The facial aspects are excellent. Come back over here. This is a really, really nice jade. Pull it in nice and close. There we go. There, that shows it. The facial drawing is facial carving is excellent. The hair is beautiful. All of it looks to be great. This is one of the nicest little jades I've seen in a long time in the form of a figure. They have a larger Kuan Yin example also in this sale, big one. But I like this just fine. I think this is great. They're estimating at $10,000 to $15,000, 4 3/4 inches high, 18th century. It should get there without too much problem. And then this is another big highlight of the sale, is this fantastic 19th century imperial robe. It was sold back by in the 1990s by Linda Rigglesworth, the she's sort of the legendary goddess of Chinese silk dealers. She handles such amazing things, and this is a robe that she sold, and it is obviously in unbelievable condition as far as color, lack of fading, lack of any discernible wear. It appears to be as fresh as the day it was made. This robe looks like they made it, they folded it up gently, put it in a tissue-lined box out of the light in a climate-controlled room, and just left it there, because it is absolutely pristine condition all the way around. Very, very beautiful robe from every aspect, and it's got a massive estimate, $120,000 to $180,000. I suspect the owner paid a lot because he bought it from the best dealer in the world of Chinese silks. But it's a great robe. It's a great robe, owing to its color, apricot color, which is a rare color, as you all know. You don't see it that often. You see the blue ground robes and those kind of things, and the red robes, but you very often see this apricot, especially with the color this vibrant. So this will be a test of the market, and these are going to be a bit of a test of the market. Some 4 Peking glass, pink overlay and carved bottles, Qinlong market period. All in one lot, estimated at $70,000 to $100,000. And as you know, Peking glass has been sort of all over the place in the last 30 years, 20 years. Some of it sells very well, and other times it doesn't sell at all well. There's a few good pieces of Peking glass in the sale, including a yellow Imperial workshop bottle that was estimated around $8,000 to $12,000. And then there's these beautiful sort of offering bowls, stem bowls, that are in 3 colors, green, pink, and blue, estimated at $80,000 to $120,000. And then over to this, we already looked at that. That's done. And then there are some bronzes too. These are from the Minio Hata collection. He was a dealer in Kobe, Japan, since the 1980s and early 90s. Somewhere back in there. He was a very good dealer. He had a great reputation, and he was a big fan of bronzes. There's some very, very nice bronzes. I think he's got about 10 lots from his own collection on here right now. One of them is this one, an unusual late Ming to early Qing Hu-form vase, Fang Hu as they're called, inlaid and so forth, estimated at $20,000 to $30,000. And then also in the Christie sale, the last thing I'm going to mention here about the sale is this very nice Huanhua Li table. And this table was from the originally in the Sackler collection. It was acquired from the Sacklers in 2000. But it's a very, very nice classic type of table, classical Ming furniture. The foot might have been trimmed a little bit on it. The foot seems to have some chipping around it. So if you're interested in these Ming tables, you always want to ask about the feet. Have they lost any height? That sort of thing. It is estimated at $80,000 to $120,000. We've seen them sell for more. We've seen them sell for a couple of $100,000. So you want to get a condition report on this table. But it is from the Sackler family collection, which means it was probably bought back in the 1940s or 1950s. Nice looking piece of furniture. All right, and then hopping along over to the eBay stuff, things that sold last week. There was this Quanjanware plaque photographed on its side for some odd reason. I think it went under the money. It sold for $569. I think that was a very, very good buy. And then there was the Republic period jar with Famille Rose enamels, and this sold for $435. I liked it. I commented on it last week because I thought it was wonderfully painted, very loosely, very festive, spring-like. It was very spring-like. Has a nice bit of calligraphy on there, and here's the factory mark. And I think this was actually, whoever got this, if one of you got this was a very, very, very good buy. These marked Republic pieces are going to become of increasing interest in years ahead, and eventually people will start writing more books about them, and they will sell for a lot more money once they do that. And then there was this very nice skirt, very good example, and it did really well, $722. The silk market remains very, very strong. Now, on to the final thing are the jades that I mentioned at the beginning of the video. These are the ones being sold by Chamberlain Antiques. He acquired these from a collector, from an estate that these had been collected 70 years ago in the 1950s. And I talked to Josh about them, and he's very excited about this collection, and he's hoping they do very well. They should do very well. There's no reserve on it. He never reserves anything, so you got a fair shot at it. But I got to show you some of the pieces that caught my eye that I particularly like. One of them is this later Ming plaque with the dragon on it. These are quite famous. This one's getting a lot of attention. It's been viewed 71 times in the last 24 hours alone, and the sale doesn't end for another 3 days. This is a beautiful plaque, beautiful jade color on it, very nice quality nephrite, very limited number of inclusions or any indication. There's a little slight darkening on the lower right, but that's nothing compared to what you see on a lot of these. The carving is quite good on it, and so forth. It's a nice looking plaque. And right now it's up to $1,125. I suspect it's probably going to go. It may go $5,000 to $7,000 by the time it's done. And then over to this. This is a 19th century jade snuff bottle with Shao characters carved into it. That's really unusual. You don't often see that. There they are in the body of the piece, and it's got this pink quartz lid, which is very pretty, very crystally looking. It's up to $355. This will probably get up, I would think, into the $1,500 to $2,500 range. Don't be surprised. It's got a rare design on it, and it looks to be in great condition, and it hasn't been banged around the market for the last 5 years. Somebody trying to sell it. And then you have one of these spinners, as they call them. The centerpiece here rotates. These are very, very desirable among collectors, sort of along the idea of these plaques that bring so much money. But these revolving pieces are very, very attractive. This is a nice 18, maybe early 19th century example. It's really nice. There's a bunch of jades in it. You want to look at them. This is one of my favorites. I love this. It's a bi-disc with relief work of dragons and phoenixes, the Empress and the Emperor, that sort of thing. And it's up to $1,583. It's got to bring $4,000 to $6,000 by the time it's done, I would suspect. He didn't. I don't know if he dated it or not. No, he didn't really. Judging by the appearance of it, it looks like. This looks like a either a late Ming or an early Qing plaque. The phoenix is done more in the Qing style, so I'm going to say probably 18th century then. 18th century plaque, maybe late 17th century. Doesn't matter. It's beautifully done, and the back of it has characters on it. This is a very unusual jade. Okay, it's a very, very unusual, fine example, and right now it's no surprise. But I think with the back decoration, well, maybe $5,000 to $7,000 for that. And then the last thing is, this is absolutely my very favorite, is this box cover. The box I don't care about, but this appears to be the head off of a rue scepter. And when they had ruby scepters with jade plaques mounted on them the way they did them, if the scepter came apart, they would save the jade because they're so valuable and repurpose them to other things. And this one is beautifully painted. I love the elephant in the middle. The sleepy-eyed elephant certainly looks to be an 18th century jade to me. It's got jade chimes, cash symbols, the double gourd bottle for the magic elixirs, all kinds of auspicious symbols on this thing. It's a very, very nice example. The box is marked China because it was remounted and exported. Forget the box. Look at the jade carving. He didn't date this either, did he? No. Well, he doesn't like to date things because people go, well, I think it's 19th century. This is an 18th century jade, in my opinion. I think it's very, very beautiful. And if you can buy this for under $3,500 or $4,000, you got a great buy. This is an absolutely wonderful piece, and it measures 4.25 inches across. So it's a pretty big piece of jade. It's like that. All right, so there's a lot going on, but check out the newsletter page this week. I'm going to have all of the stuff on there. All the Jades will be on there, and there's a lot of other stuff. I was shocked at how many listings we gathered in the last couple of days to put on the newsletter page this week over at Bidamount. So do check it out. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I noticed we get a lot of traffic out of there, and not a lot of people subscribe to get the notifications. So I'm going to say it again. Well, subscribe here on YouTube, of course, and join us on Patreon if you want. But sign up here today for it. Go over to Bidamount, sign up for it, and then we also send out occasionally in the middle of the week, if we add something to the newsletter page. Sometimes we do. If we come across something that's going to run out, but we think it's worth adding quickly, we'll add it, and sometimes we send out an email letting you know we've added something. So you might want to do that. But this is the stuff that was on there last week. There's some very nice examples. Some of the things have closed. The ones at the bottom haven't finished up yet. These bronzes are still on there. This bronze that we talked about last week is now up to about $810. There's another one too down here that's very nice, as a Ming example. So check out the newsletter page this week, and that about covers it. That about covers it for the week. I hope you are all enjoying the last gasp of summer as we head into Labor Day in a week or two, and so it goes. All right. Have a wonderful week. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, leave a comment, all that good stuff, and we'll be back next week with more videos. All righty. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.